Hello everyone, this is going to be a video on my explanation of how I read the tarot, which is an alternative way of looking at it compared to how I believe a lot of people view the tarot. Typically, people start off at the Magician and they wind up at the World card. In my way of reading tarot, I actually do it in reverse. I start off at the World card and then I end up at the Magician. To me personally, I understand that there's a lot of systems built into the tarot, whether it's numerological, whether it is symbolically, astrologically, whether that's dealing with the stars or the planets. There's the Kabbalistic aspects. For me, I view the tarot very literally in terms of the archetypal imagery the cards are expressing, and that's what I'm going to share today in the video. So let's just say I'm going to offer up that there's three versions, right? There's the traditional version of reading from card number 1 and ending at card number 21. There is, let's just say the version I'm proposing today, the alternate version, which is starting at card 21 and ending at 1. And then thirdly, there's going to be a hybrid version. The hybrid version is in a lot of Hermetic, Hellenistic, occult, Gnostic traditions, the soul is born when it departs from the monad or the Imperium, right? So let's say as this card is out of frame, it's unborn, it's in the Imperium, the monad. It first has to become separated and then come into existence. Well, they believed as the soul came down through the spheres of influence, it picked up along the way certain traits, whether positive or negative, from the different celestial bodies or the governors of those planets and positioning of the stars. And that's how our unique soul was born, right? So in this hybrid version, the soul's born. It does start off in the traditional way where, you go to the Magician and you work your way to the world. But let's just say in this version, the soul's not born yet. It's just picking up certain attributes, whether positive or negative, along the way. Then it's born into the world. And this is where Eliphas Levi places the Fool card in between the Judgment and the World card. To me, it makes a lot of sense because the world is literally where our souls are born into. Now, going back to the teachings in, let's say, some of these occult and mystic schools and teachings, they believe that there was 2 births and 2 deaths. They believe that the first death was a spiritual death that led to the physical birth. So that's first death, first birth. Then at the end of our lives, we are experiencing our second death, which is a physical death, which then results in our spiritual rebirth. And so they believe that the soul, right, as it's right now, the soul is not in existence because it is a part of the monad. It is a part of a totality that is unconditioned. In order for something to have experience, it must undergo separation. And that separation is not just a separation from the divine, even though we are made of the divine. It is also a level of ignorance, right? Because if we want to have an experience, we have to separate ourselves from the all-knowing and therefore have to undergo a certain level of ignorance in order to have an experience on this physical plane. And so when we come and are separated, we are born into this world. And here's where I'm going to begin my discussion on the Fool's Journey, starting from 21 and going all the way to the Magician, the number 1 spot. I would like to explain that in this video particularly, I am talking about the literal birth of a human being and the typical patterns associated. I know not everyone's life is 100% the same, but I think this is a typical representation of a human being born into this world. In future videos, I will use this model right here to talk about more specific examples. For example, how can you apply this logic to if you're, say, a CEO of a company, if you're a business owner, if you're a parent, if you're an athlete, right? If you are somebody that's trying to invent something and bring it into this world, I will go into those specific examples later on, but this video is specifically designed so that in future videos, when people are saying, that's not what that card's supposed to mean, I say, you know what? You're right in a traditional sense. Come watch this video, which is a reference video, to understand of what's going on or what I am trying to explain. So, with that being said, I don't look at the world card as completion. I look at the world card as formation. I look at the world card as natural law. These are the conditions and the boundaries of the plane of existence that we are coming into. And whether we are aware of them or we're not, right? When we're unaware of them, we are the fool. When we become aware of them and we master this complete system, hopefully we arrive at becoming the magician. So all of these terms, right? This is like when you're going, anytime you're signing extensive amounts of paperwork or contracts, that is what this is. This is a contract, and you have to read the fine print. And a lot of times we don't. A lot of times as human beings, we have to discover the fine print the hard way because we are in a state of ignorance. We don't know. And so that's what the world card to me represents. It's not completion, it's formation, it's written law. Now, as soon as we were born into this world, right, we are here and we are going to be judged right off from the beginning. As soon as we're born, even before we're born, your parents are going to go, I think it's a boy, I think it's a girl. Oh, he's kicking a lot. This kid's going to be energetic. This kid's going to be a pain in my butt. I could not get any sleep. You know, you're going to hear this. You probably hear this if you have brothers and sisters. Oh, your baby was a good baby. Or your brother or sister was a good, kid in my stomach. You kept me up a lot. You liked spicy food. Then you're born. Oh, it's a big baby. It's a little baby. It has lots of hair. This baby cries a lot. This baby's very pleasant. We're going to be judged from day one. It's up to us to overcome any type of challenges that are imparted into our soul's journey. And not every soul's journey is going to be the same. And so when I look at the judgment card, right from the get-go, it should be understood that before we're even aware of it, right? Because we see a baby right here, still probably unaware that the world and your soul is being judged, right, from birth. So I look at the card as judgment. This is also later on when you go to use this in specific examples of, let's say, trying to progress yourself along a certain practice. This is going to be decision making. This is going to be your judgment in terms of which route you should go down to. So that brings us to the Sun card now, right? This is very much an undeveloped youth. Very analogous to the Magician. You could see here that this red flag almost can resemble the red cloak. The white horse can represent the white garment. This is the child being born, given a vitality. The life seed is here to grow like there is the sunflowers in the garden, and to hopefully being a bright light that shines upon the world. We were given life to enjoy it, right? And that's really what this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards represent here before we get to the Tower. Hopefully our experience, right, is a good one growing up. For most people, and I hope everybody, which I know is not the case, but I want everyone to have a magical existence where they're nurtured and they're loved, and that's what life's supposed to be about. And that's what's expressed mostly through the tarot is love. I will explain that in a future video. Here we have this soul's on its path in the beginning, right? The moon card, right, represents the illusion, the emotions, the mystery, the subconscious. This is the beginning of the journey. And at this point in time, at a young person's stage in their life, up until they're 5, you don't remember much. And these are the formative years right here. Formative, right, is a very strong word because the earth itself, right, is formed through matter. So in these formative years, a lot of times we don't remember the things that have happened to us. We don't remember if we grew up in a toxic family. We don't remember if we grew up in a nurturing family. We don't remember if our parents were a helicopter parents. We don't remember how much love we got. There's a lot of things we don't remember. And so this is the formative years right here. Later on in the journey, even though we may not explicitly remember certain memories, based off of our behavior, based off of how we're presenting ourselves in the world, based off of maybe having conversations with our parents as we get older, we start to see like, oh, maybe my mom and dad weren't in a stable place back then, and I could kind of see why I'm showing up as an anxious partner, or why I'm showing up as insecure when it comes to relationships, or maybe why I have certain tendencies, right? Or maybe you go, I'm a pretty stable person when it comes to relationships, and I came from a loving household, right? We're never going to be able to remember certain memories of our formative years, but our behavior and how we respond to impulses, or how we respond to inputs is indicative of our formative years, along with the vestments and the attributes our soul was adorned with before it was born. But none of that we can remember. To me, the star card is symbolic of saying, in this phase of your life, the universe gave you life, it gave you love. It's always here for you. It's always going to nurture you and give you what you want, right? And there's the innocence, right, within all of this, the innocence of youth, okay? You're in a nescience place, which is a nice term that I learned from Mark Passio. Nescience is different from ignorance, because nescience, and this is in Mark's explanation, is not knowing due to basically innocence almost, or inexperience. Ignorance, on the other hand, is you've been given the information needed, but you choose to ignore it. So this up here is a living being that is in a state of nescience, right? As we get older, we become teenagers, adolescents, young people, we get to the Tower card. This is where we start to develop our own sovereignty and decision making. And some of us start off a little bit better than others. But this is where maybe you're a kid, you steal candy from the candy store, you get in trouble, you get a wake-up call. This is, you get your driver's license, you're speeding, you have too loud of an exhaust system on your car, you get pulled over by the cops. You get woken up. You get slapped by life. This is also more serious things. This is addiction. Maybe an overdose. Maybe you wake up in the hospital. This is a wake-up call that the innocence of youth is wearing off, right? You are now making your own decisions, right? The world is not going to protect you always. It's there for you, and it's going to give you the love and nurture you need and the things to succeed. But you have to make the right decisions. This could be somebody getting pregnant out, in an irresponsible way, right? They're just throwing around their sexual energy, whether it's male or female. So you're knocking up chicks, you're getting them pregnant, right? Now you're causing them to have to get an abortion. Or you're a female, you're opening up yourself to, misery and suffering because now you're fully not developed as a human being yet. And now you have to have a kid when you're not ready. Or maybe you have to get an abortion. This is the wake-up call. And what we're going to learn is that behind all this is the temptation of the devil. This is where we have to start realizing that on one side of the tower, right, which this could really represent when we're looking at the Kabbalistic tree, we have the 3 pillars, right? On one side, you have the nurturing, you have the life-giving waters of life. On the other end, you have the temptation of the devil. This is where our bodies are choosing, right? If we choose the correct path, right, we will be in line with the divine. If we choose the path of temptation, and if we're drowning in materialism and we're chasing the things that we shouldn't, wrong passions, sexual energy being misused, drugs, fame, fortune, greed, the 7 vices, the 7 sins, all those things, right? We're going to be in bondage. And this is where the devil card comes in. And as the soul progresses, right, now we come to temperance. This is a point in our lives where you're going to have to either see internally through learning from experience or from mentors, whether they're your parents, teachers, coaches, maybe they're religious figures in your life, are going to mentor you, right? There's going to be something higher that's saying you cannot revert back to these decisions, right? Because you're going to keep experiencing this disruption in your life. If you want to go back to this state where you're in resonance with the universe, you're going to have to learn temperance. You're going to have to learn to control your emotions, your impulses. You're going to have to learn these things. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be given advice, whether through your own internal dialogue or whether through its others. And what's going to happen is you're going to further on grow up. You're going to go. And there's going to be the death card right here. Up here we have this mystic rose. There was a, real quick, hold on. The Tudor rose, right? The one thing I want to point out is that in this rose, the pentagram is upside down. To me, this is a symbol that those who represent this will fall. And so we have to start to see that when we tip wisdom and we tip spirit upside down, we're going to fall. It doesn't matter what your status is in the universe. It doesn't matter if you're nobility. It doesn't matter if you're a religious figure. It doesn't matter if you're an adult. It's telling you, child, please learn that you are going to have to kill off the bad patterns in your life if you want to transform into a person that is going to eventually reach a level of mastery, which is a state of purity, which I can be saying this to you right now, but I'm not saying this to you as somebody who has achieved mastery yet. I am still on my journey, and I'm just being transparent right now because I'm not coming from a place of, I'm above you. I am still on my journey. I am still learning. I am not the magician I want to be, okay? But this is along my journey through the philosophies that I've learned that I'm sharing. But anyway, to get back to it, all of these are symbols of status. Even the adult right here, right? Even though this could be a peasant lady or whoever it may be, you're still an adult. That doesn't mean you have learned anything yet. In terms of the world, right? Here's ignorance, this lady. Here is nescience, the person that doesn't know better yet, but still has innocence. So we must learn. And as we make our way to the hangman is saying, you know better. You've already learned, and this is why he is illuminated, but he is pointing downward just like the rose. When we look at these two cards, you have spirit being tipped up on its head. This is the symbol for that. And we have the hangman. A lot of people interpret this card as suspension or taking a time out, which it can be used that way, but specifically, this is an ignorant person, and you will continue to be in a suspended state until you learn how to tip wisdom and tip spirit in the right direction. And that's why he has such a smug, not smug, but like he has a look on his face, because this is what teenagers look like. They think they know better, but they truly don't. They've been told by their parents what to do, but they will continue to be in timeout until you tip wisdom up on its head. This then is starting to get to the midway point in the deck. And at the midway point in the deck, we have the pillars of justice. 11, right? You have 1 and 1. You have one pillar in the other. These are the pillars that we're moving through, which eventually, right, was our initial journey here, represented by the moon card. It's here to show us that above all, that if you want to have a pleasant existence on this life, if you want to achieve wonderful things, if you want to be in congruence and resonance with creation and with spirit, you're going to have to listen. There is an order above all that exists on this material plane. And you've been given examples throughout your life of growing up. When you were a kid, when you stole from the candy store, when you were speeding on the highway, recklessly endangering people's lives, when you used your sexual energy incorrectly, when you chased fame and fortune and greed, when you became jealous, when you were envious of others, all of these things, right? It's time for you to recognize there's an order, and justice will never allow you to advance if you do not get your act straight. Once you submit to the fact that there is a divine justice in the universe, and now when the divine sees that you truly want to become a better person, you enter the Wheel of Fortune. And what the Wheel of Fortune is your fortune. Your path is going to be determined by your behavior, your decisions, and your thoughts. And this is how the material plane works. There's a lot of symbology built into this card. We're not going to go over the whole thing. So to me, the karma card represents, the Wheel of Fortune definitely represents karma. It definitely represents, it could be a new cycle. It could be a change in circumstance. It could be good fortune or bad fortune. It depends on how the layout of the cards in the spread are. So what we see is that in this new cycle, right? We're in this new cycle of our spiritual development. You're going to come to the Hermit. He's guiding the pathway for you. He is basically, the Hermit card is you have to take a time out. You have to get to a place of solitude. Maybe you have to separate yourself from bad influences, whether it's friends or family or environment. And you are going to have to learn. You're going to have to pick up whatever type of book that you feel is guiding you, whatever type of religion, spirituality, practice, whatever it may be. You have to find some type of wisdom on this planet that is going to allow you to do that. You could do this on your own through isolation, or you could look at the Hermit as an actual mentor, a person, whether it's a parent, family, friend, religious figure that is going to help guide you and show you the way. Here, you've reached the top of the mountain, right? You've climbed, you've recognized you have to put in the work. You could see through the symbology that the path begins here. We're coming out of the waters. We're going up to the mountain to become illuminated, right? We're recognizing that the world will close in upon us and the sun will set if we choose not to move in the path of spirit. And then we're coming up to the top of the mountain. We learn that we have to be in congruence with justice and divine order. We have our mentor. We have everything we need. Now it comes to the strength card, where this is going to take strength. This is going to take courage to transform yourself. And we're going to have to do it in a way where we're censoring those carnal desires, those impulses that have gotten us into trouble along the way. We have to have the strength through compassion and love, which is symbolized by the infinity symbol, along with this gracious being that is gently closing the lion's mouth, right? Once we have gotten to this point, which is huge in our development, we embody the chariot. I want to go into, this is one of my favorite cards in the tarot. This is a person that has tamed and has mastered their inner self, right? They can now move about the world without imparting suffering to others or to themselves. And this is what needs to happen, right? Remember down here we talked about people throwing their sexual energy around incorrectly? Well, this is a person now that this is the person you want to be or the person you want to meet when you go to get married, right? So that's very indicative, right? Instead of this where you're starting off in this direction in the traditional way, you know, you're going from, say, the Empress to the Emperor to the Hierophant, now to the Lovers. Now you're becoming, excuse me, let me finish that thought. Now you're becoming a person that's in control of their inner self. That doesn't make much sense to me, at least. To me, it makes more sense. You've gone through the trials and tribulations. You've been mentored. You now have the courage and strength to control your inner self. Now you can move into this relationship. Whether this is a partnership in business, whether it's actually your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, whoever it may be, you can now start to, even friendship, right? You can now start to foster these friendships and this love. And now we start moving into the Hierophant. The Hierophant, this has to start doing with overarching structures of the world, right? There's going to be figures, there's going to be customs, there's going to be certain aspects of this physical plane that are going to be dictated by law and by religious laws. Not only that, you get married, you normally go to a religious institution to get married, right? You're solidifying this. You are now within a framework of whatever spiritual institution you have chosen to go into. Not only that, this to me is also symbolic of a justice type card, because now you're entering into a matrimony with somebody else. And you guys are going, in order to build an empire like the Empress and the Emperor, right? You are going to have to make sure that your relationship is grounded in divine spirituality, whatever that is to you. But your relationship, not only are you going to have to individually submit, but as a couple, you are going to have to come to the understanding that your relationship needs to be in the right place. in order for you to be able to become a king and a queen. So now we move to the king card, right? This is, to me, you may not actually be a king of a country, but you could be the king. Let's do the king and the queen, right? Because we're going to talk about both, right? You could become the king or the queen, the mom or the dad. You could become the business owner, the CEO. You could become a political figure, whether it's a mayor, a governor. You now are in control of a domain that is larger than your individual self. Over here is the domain of your individual self. You could operate in the world in a way where, again, you're not introducing suffering to yourself or others. Here is a domain that's bigger, whether it's your family, community, your friends, whatever it may be. That's what this represents right here. So ultimately, there's always more beyond that, right? There's more beyond of reaching materialistic achievements. That's what this is. That's what the Empress and the Emperor is materialistic achievements. You've mastered the game up until this point where, you know, to the outside world looking in, you have everything going on for you, right? You're in a good place. But it's always a lot deeper than that. And that's where we get to the Magician and the High Priestess. This is internal purity. This is internal mastery. This is a stage of development that goes beyond the physical plane. This is where you have to get to, that at the end of your soul's journey, or the end of the fool's journey, you've reached a level of mastery in life. Externally, you've reached it, but also internally, you have reached it. And now you are a completed human being, and you've mastered the material plane to the point where it's reached its end conclusion. And when you go and you have your physical death, you can now, when you have your spiritual rebirth, you could be reconnected with the one, the monad, the Imperium. I'm going to leave this here for now. This is the direction to which I read the tarot. I'm going to quickly point out some of the cards that I think have a different interpretation for me compared to the traditional way. One of them is the World card. To me, this is natural law. This is formation. This is the terms of the domain that you are in, whether you're a baby or whether you're an adult now entering a new contract. There's terms that you have to understand. So this, to me, is not completion. This is formation. This is the contracts that underlie the formation of the domain that you're in. Judgment is decision making, and it also is you are being judged. Most of the cards, to me, still represent the same meaning as they do in the traditional sense. The World card is one that I switch around. The Magician, to me, has nothing to do necessarily with potential. It can, in a way, but for me, it's mastery. 100% mastery. Then finally, I think that's really it. It's honestly these two cards. Most of the cards, to me, represent most of what they do in the traditional way. I would say the Wheel of Fortune might be another one, but to me, again, this card is highly indicative of what the other cards are showing in the spread, but your fate, your fortune is going to be determined based off of the decisions and your behavior and how you are in relation to the divine spirit that created this creation that we are in. So that's close to where I want to be, ladies and gentlemen. I might redo this video in the future. It was fun making this, going through this explanation. If you disagree with anything that is said, that is fine. But that's what tarot is. It's a great system, and hopefully it allows us to achieve and manifest things into this world that the Justice card would be proud of. Thank you very much. Have a great day.